Head to Subway for the tangy new Tuscan Chicken Melt, seasoned chicken, melted cheese, and olive vinaigrette. With 9 grams of fat, it's part of a Subway Fresh Fit meal. A simpler way to enjoy eating better. Hurry in today. Subway. Eat fresh. The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
This is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
it might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't
The
care.
BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report. It's not often that we have one of the 10 greatest NBA players ever to play basketball on our podcast, as well as somebody who doubles as the logo for the National Basketball Association and has won about, I don't even know how many rings at this point. It might be 8, might be 12 as a player and a GM. He's on the BS Report right now on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. The great Jerry West. What's happening?
Well, I'm just getting ready to enjoy the NBA Finals, to be honest with you.
Obviously, you're rooting for the Lakers.
Well, it would be hard for me to root for anyone else after my long association with the Lakers and knowing some of the people, knowing many of the people intimately who I hired years ago that are still there, and I think it attests not only to their good work, but also, more importantly, the tremendous ownership they have here in Jerry Buss. He's a very loyal man. He's been a great owner, and obviously the Lakers have been, one of the most prized teams in this in the NBA for years and years and years.
And you drafted Kobe in 1996. Actually swung a trade for him.
Well, we did make a trade for him, and he's obviously turned out to be one of the great players we've ever seen in this league, and he's still a relatively young man. He might have a little wear on his tires, but he's still so great. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I just wrapped up a 700-page NBA book. I swear to God, it's 700 pages. And a lot of it covers, the history and the guys who fell through the cracks and stuff like that. Comes out in October. I became convinced as I was working on this book that other than Kareem, who is now incredibly underrated for some reason, I thought you were the single most underrated player that I read about. Your career was, I think you're in the top 8, third best guard of all time. Here's Kobe, if he wins a title, actually has a chance to maybe pass you from a historical sense. Is it weird to think that this young kid that you drafted, 17 years old, might actually now ranks up there with you career-wise if he wins this title?
Well, to be honest with you, I don't even think like that. That's never been my focus involved in the sport. I love to play because I like to compete, and I was fortunate enough to be able to play on good teams, not quite good enough to win as many championships as we won, a lot of bitter disappointments. But, I've also watched him grow, and he's had an awful lot of help here in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And but his skill and his determination and his will is second to none. And as I say, I don't try to compare myself with people. I just don't want to get into something like that. Mm-hmm. I see a lot of incredible players playing today, but I see a lot of players that I don't think are very good still playing. So the NBA's expanded a lot. Expansion obviously is good in the terms that more people get an opportunity to play the game that they love. But again, the more you expand, you're going to have players in the league that probably are players who are justified in playing in the league the way it's constructed today. But competition is what it's all about, and the people the most competitive are going to win out. And at this time of year, I think the 2 best teams are there. I just didn't think Cleveland had enough. LeBron James carried that team all year long, and I think was reflected in his voting the most valuable player and also being on the all-league defensive team. But in the end, they just weren't good enough to beat Orlando.
And actually, his playoffs that he had this year was a little reminiscent of you. It was either 65 or 66. Elgin Baylor got hurt, and you were averaging like 40 points a game on the Lakers.
Well, actually, that was through the whole playoff. But
yeah,
and I think in one of those series, I averaged almost 48 a game.
Yeah, the record.
And it was against the I think the Baltimore Bullets. I think that they were at that time, and who are now the Washington Wizards. So it was one of those times in your career when you're young and everything feels good, and obviously I got an opportunity to shoot the ball a lot more, and we were fortunate enough to beat a team that we weren't as good at. They were a better team than us, and it worked out. We won, and then Boston beat us in 5 games. But as I say, it was one of those years when you're in the prime of your career and you're capable of doing things that a little bit differently as during those times, instead of when you get a little bit older, when you're not really capable of those kind of nights every night.
And you had an interesting quote when I was researching you about later in your career, maybe the tail end of your prime, even, talking like 1970, 71, you had really figured out exactly what to do and how to play and everything you needed to do. But you weren't quite as talented as you were 4 years before. So there's this weird, I wouldn't even call it weird. It'd say, your brain knew all the things to do, but you wish you'd had your 1966 body. Does that make sense?
Well, I had a lot of injuries in my career, and I had a chronic hamstring pull, and then I tore a groin muscle, which was really probably what was the last straw for me as a player. And then I tore a ligament in my knee, and at that point in time, obviously, you didn't have you had the best medical care you could get, but today. I think all those things would have been relatively minor because the players have so many more aids to their disposal. I was in a cast for 12 weeks with a knee injury, and today they don't even put you in a cast, but your leg almost dies in that point in time. And I never really felt that I got back from that injury. If I had to go left, and particularly defensively, where I noticed it the most. But again, as I say, we played in a time when I think we all played. There wasn't a lot of money involved at all, and there were a lot of unbelievably competitive people when we played, just as there are today. But as I say, I missed over 2 full seasons in my career with injuries, and frankly, most of them were at the height of my career. It would have been nice to not to have had to face that, but again, it's the one thing with any basketball team. Everyone assumes that every player is going to stay healthy, and particularly your better players. But an injury to the key player on the team can devastate a team because they supply so much more than just their abilities. But you watch Kobe Bryant on the sidelines; it looks like he's coaching the team over there, and he just is so into it. His commitment to the game is just incredible. And I think the one thing that I like about him, and when he plays, he doesn't play with smiling. Okay, he plays. He how serious he is.
Yeah.
And I wish more players would take that approach. And after the game, nice game, and so be it. But as I say, I do enjoy the players today. I enjoy the game. Obviously, I love the growth of the league because it meant so much to me and to, I think, all the older players who, in many ways, were kind of the pioneers of the league, but certainly didn't receive the benefits that the players do today.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that happened in the 60s that I don't even think the casual basketball fan knows about. Like, one of the things I was fascinated by, the 1964 All-Star Game in Boston, you guys basically had no collective bargaining agreement whatsoever. You just had like a couple stupid things. And you guys decided, we're going to strike this game. We're not going out until we get some sort of guarantee for something. And it turned into this very heated thing where the owners were coming down and telling you guys to get out on the court and all this stuff. And you guys kind of stood your ground, and eventually they caved. And that basically that night led to every financial advance that followed for the next 45 years. I've never heard anybody even talk about it. You were there that night. What was that like?
Well, I sure was. The owner told Elgin Baylor and I, and we were both just starting our careers. I was in the league 4 years, and he was, 6 years. And he told us, he said, if you guys don't play, you're never going to play again. I said, well, I don't think I'm going to play any more basketball. And I'm sitting inside of me cringing because I just love to compete, as did the other people. But it was a turning point for the players. You had no rights at all then, and the players of today should get down on their knees and thank their lucky stars that a group of people who were making absolutely nothing. It wouldn't make any difference if you lost your job at all because you could probably made as much working for someone else as you could playing the NBA and the rigorous schedule and the horrible travel that we had to endure.
Well, you were playing like 25, 30, 40 exhibition games a year plus the schedule.
Well, I think we were playing 18 to 20 is about all.
Okay.
And we played 3 nights in a row all the time, and as I say, I never try to put players or coaches at disadvantage. I constantly hear them say that their players are tired because they played the night before. That's the most ridiculous thing of all. It's just an excuse. There should be no excuses. You're trained. You're finely tuned. You travel first class. You can, and our problem was no one could get to sleep because after games you just can't go to sleep unless you're one of those lucky people. And you had to take the first flight out of any airport the next morning to get to a game, and then you might have to do the same thing the next day. So you end up with no sleep. Well, these kids get on the airplane today, and players have been, and frankly, we started here in Los Angeles, chartering our own planes for our players, where if you played in Portland, we could be back here after a game at 2 o'clock at night, about when players are about ready to go to bed, and you sleep in your own bed. So everything is different and better as you would expect it to be today, and that eventful All-Star game in 1964 was, frankly, the beginning of it. I don't think any of us expected to see the players have the same kind of rights that they do today.
I talked to Elgin Baylor about this once, your old teammate. He goes crazy when he hears about, much like you. It just sounds like about when the players talk about when the players say, "Oh, they're tired. My team's tired. We played 3 games in 5 nights."
Be tired.
He was like, "We used to fly coach. We'd have 3 stops. We'd carry our own luggage, and now these guys, it's obviously a lot easier to travel." You also, back in the day, as you pointed out, you didn't have the same medical treatment. You didn't have personal trainers. You didn't know really what to eat. I think Bill Sharman was one of the only guys who had the kind of diet that maybe the guys would be more.
Well, I think all of us had habits, so that was the most important thing. We ate at a certain time. We certainly didn't have the knowledge that they have today about what you should eat or shouldn't eat. But being heavy wasn't one of them. And they played so many games in hell, I think the NBA Finals were over in May then instead of June. But we made a grand production out of it, and as rightfully it should be at this time of year.
In the '69 Finals, you're still to this day the only guy who won the Finals MVP, even though your team lost. What struck me as I was reading about that particular Finals was the level of respect that the Celtics had for you. And it was almost like, obviously they want to win, they want to beat you guys. But they were all kind of quietly devastated for you because they had so much respect for you as a competitor. And you had fought so hard and you were so crushed losing Game 7 at home. Do you sense that same level of urgency from Kobe? Now it's almost like...
Well, he plays that way all the time, okay? And for me, that was a bittersweet loss because, people ask me, I had the same distinction when I was in college. I won the Most Valuable Player award and on a losing team in a college NCAA final, and it doesn't feel very good. And you just, I've always felt it should go to the winner, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again: it should go to the winner. But the way it turned out, it was very bittersweet, and I say everyone thinks I hated the Celtics. That wasn't the case. I think we all had great respect for them. They had some great guys on their team, and people that I have the utmost admiration for. But it just wasn't in the cards for us to beat them, unfortunately. Even though I felt there's 2 times we should have won, and I think that's what really has always rankled me, and I'm sure other Laker players.
What were the 2 times? 69 and 62.
I think so, yes. I think those are the 2 times that I felt that we had a legitimate chance to win, and we didn't win. And no excuses, but we didn't win. 62, and for those of you who don't know, came down to you had a game-winning shot in regulation, jump shot missed by Frank Selvey, went into overtime, and the Celtics prevailed, I think, at the Garden. But yeah, I think that was by 1 point too. And, it was those are hard to live with, and more importantly, you live with them all your life if you care.
Bill Russell. So he wins 11 in 13 years, and had just this knack for his team would just come through in a close game. And you could call it lucky a couple times. Like, I think if Frank Selvey makes a shot, you guys win the title.
Well, I don't say that's luck. It's just
that's my question.
Okay.
How much, when you're that good, how much of it is luck and how much of it is just that he has put his team into a position where they can win every time?
Well, as I say, he's a marvelous player and probably the greatest winner we've ever seen in this game because of all the championships he won. But, the situation has changed today. Players can freely to move around. At that time, you were kind of a captive audience. If a team wanted you, fine. If they didn't want you, they got rid of you. But he was, he was more than a player. He was almost regal in his approach to the way he played the game. And when he walked on the court, there's a difference in him. He had great respect for him, but again, you played and you competed.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, his teams complimented him very well, and they seemed to find a way to win any kind of a game, a gritty game, a tough-minded game, a scoring game, a defensive game. They could win any different way, and that's usually a sign of a good team that can really win with any kind of a team and any kind of a team that you're facing that plays a little bit different style than conventional.
And you ended up on a team like that, the 72 Lakers.
Oh, yeah. Well, that team could really play together, and as I say, we did accomplish remarkable things. I think if, looking back, I think we should have only lost about 3 games the whole year.
Wow.
And a lot of them were just games that you can't believe you could lose. But it's just one of those teams that had the ability to play together and play at a high level.
Well, you won 33 straight, which, in my opinion, is one of the top 5 NBA records of all time. I mean, the Houston Rockets, I think they won 20 2 years ago or 21 or something.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, that's the best team record there is.
Yeah, I don't know how you did it. Especially, I could see it happening with chartered planes and stuff like that. But in 1972, I don't see how you roll off 33. I'm just amazed.
Well, we just had a team that, again, could win any kind of a game. And we had we were very great rebounding team, great running team, very good shooting team. As I say, could win any kind of a game, and we had people who could score the ball, and as I say, my role would completely change. I'd gone from somebody who scored a lot of points, even though I scored quite a few points that year. I led the league in assists, and so that was again probably one of. I think players get a reputation. Well, this guy, he does, he only scores or he only defends. I've always looked at players as the ones I have the most respect for, are the ones who have an all-around game, and that's to me that sort of changed how I felt about myself because I did care about winning, and there's a lot of ways to win. And Bill Sharman asked me to do something different. And it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me in my career.
And he also somehow got through to Wilt, which a lot of coaches have tried to fail.
Wilt Chamberlain is probably one of the most misunderstood people of all. It wasn't getting through to him. He just needed the right people around him all the time. And I've watched. He's been, people malign him for not winning more championships. Well. Who won them? Boston, and Boston simply had better players around him than Wilt had around him. But you hear all these comparisons: who's the best, Chamberlain or Russell, Magic Johnson, or Larry Bird. In every era, you have those things, and Russell probably was the greatest winner, but he also probably had the best teammates around him.
Yeah, but in 1969, you guys had a better team.
Well, while we had a better team, but we were older. It's too bad that team couldn't stay in place for a while because we would have won a lot of games.
Yeah, and you played with, Elgin. Might have been, I think maybe goes down as one of the best forward ever. And hurts his knee 5 years in. Well,
remarkable player and a great person, one of the classiest people I've ever been around in my life, and it was a pleasure to play with him because he did play the game at such a high level. But again, I've been very fortunate to play with a lot of good players. In Los Angeles, the Lakers, we've had some of the greatest players, truly great players. I'm not talking about people who make the Hall of Fame, but truly the great players that ever played this game. And it's been my good fortune to have a chance to see all of them play, and a few of them I got a chance to play with.
Were you excited when the Boston Garden finally got knocked down? Be honest.
To me? Well,
Yeah.
You know what? I really don't care. I don't have anything negative to say about Boston. You have to give them a lot of credit, but I don't think they were going to win this year. I really don't. And
No, I was talking about the Boston Garden when they knocked it down in 1995.
Oh, well, yeah.
And you had some bad memories there.
Yeah, well, it's always nice to see the Lakers win, okay, regardless of who they're playing, and that made it a little bit more special. I don't wear a lot of green, by the way, so.
Yeah, I figured. But you won your title in 72, and then the 85 Lakers won the title on the Boston Garden floor. So that had to have exercised some demons for you.
Well, as I say, it was, I worked in a different capacity then, and even though you're not playing, you're still competing, and again, that was a big part of us trying to put a team together that could compete against anyone and beat anyone, and they did. They won 5 championships in the 80s with, I think, the greatest teams I've ever seen play. We had so many great players on those teams that a lot of them got hidden because of the brilliance of Magic Johnson and Abdul-Jabbar, but those teams were loaded with talent, and they played like teams, and they competed, and they won a lot.
And as you pointed out before, that was a different era. It was a little pre-expansion. You could actually have 9 good guys on your team. You could have 9 men with
I don't think you could afford it today.
No. In fact, I tried to figure this out in my book. Like, if you had tried to put together the 87 Lakers under today's rule, like, first of all, there's no way you'd trade for Michael Thompson. There's no way you could have fit his cap figure into whatever you're trying to do.
Well, unless you had an owner who was willing to pay an enormous price for trying to win a championship. And as you're well aware, people have spent tons and tons of money, and they've lost an awful lot of money. These franchises, I think it's pride of ownership, and very wealthy people lose a lot of money owning an NBA franchise, that's for sure, by trying to win. And you can't buy a championship. It just doesn't happen.
Are you happy? I just wrote a huge thing about the officiating and how they, ever since the Artest melee, they've been so afraid of letting these guys bang bodies and kind of compete the way basketball players are meant to compete. Have you noticed a change in the competitive tenor of these games?
Players are they're competitive. My goodness, if you try to harness that, then you're harnessing something very special to the game. But I don't think anyone wants to see violence. Hockey almost seems like they condone it, and it's a part of their game. But in basketball, it's not a part of their game. I think the thing that's happened when I watch officials, number one, I wish we only had 2 officials. I'll be honest with you. I think
really,
absolutely. I think it would be a better game, because also I think you would get people that would blow their whistle. Now, and the commentators certainly don't help at all. It's a good no call. That's ridiculous. A foul, if it's a foul early in the game, it's a foul late in the game. In the regular season, you can't touch anybody. In the playoffs, they start bumping bodies and everything. And those are fouls. You call them. They're in the rule book. You call them. And I don't think anyone wants to see a foul-filled game. They want to see a floated game. I think this playoff with the Lakers and the Magic, I think you'll see pretty basketball. I really do. I don't think you'll see all the grabbing and holding that goes on. But officials do have a right to make those calls, and they're reluctant to do it because every time they do it, they get criticized. If someone gets touched in an awkward way, it's a flagrant foul. My God. I wish they had played when we played. They want to see flagrant. They want to see flagrant fouls. There were flagrant fouls there. Your people really tried to hurt you. But the bottom line is that it's a difficult job to do. The bodies are getting bigger, not necessarily taller, but bigger through weight training. But again, everything is judgment. Some people's judgment is not as good as players is not, and some of the officials' judgment is not as good as it should be.
When you played, the guys policed each other. And now it seems like the referees are trying to police the guys. Do you think that we could ever find some sort of balance between those two things?
Well, again, I think too much emphasis is being placed on the officiating. And I think the more people complain, if I were an official, I'd tell you, enough is enough. Any more complaining. You see guys running up to the officials. There are obvious fouls. And if you show it to them on TV, it's an obvious foul, and they're still bitching and complaining. They think they're going to get favors. I wouldn't if I were an official, I would not put up with that. I want to officiate a game by the rules, with no influence on whether a guy was a star or not. And obviously, the stars are looked after. I don't they don't want to do it but they put so much pressure on the officials because they're always so aggressive in attacking the basket. So, it's a difficult thing to do, that's for sure.
Would you have adjusted your game for the current rules? Because now it's like the offensive
it was
player
harder
can
then.
create
You can
contact.
hand check. Hand check. They can't hand check today. So I think it's easier today, as a matter of fact. But I think people make too much of it, and this is a game that is a contact game. They just don't want it to be a boxing match, and they try their best. And it's easy to be critical of officials I think if I heard coaches constantly complaining about, I not only would fine them, I would suspend them, and I think that would stop it. Because everyone thinks they're currying favors by complaining about the officials, and people talk about the psychological edge. Hell with that. It's about who has the best team.
Yeah. Well, I look at like when you were playing in the 60s, you were going to the line 12 times a game. When they weren't really calling everything. Nowadays, you probably go to the line 20 times a game.
I don't think we need to talk about when I played the game. Everything was different then. And I don't think it does any good to call attention to when I played. I think, we're playing a game today that it's fun to watch. We watch some really athletic players. We watch players that are tremendously talented. And I like to focus on players and the way the game is played, not the officials or not the coaches.
When you saw what LeBron was doing in these playoffs, did you have any flashbacks to the lottery? Because to me, that was the greatest hit or miss lottery moment ever. We're going to get LeBron or get nothing.
Well, I can't stand the lottery, number one, and David Stern probably want to kill me, but I just don't like the lottery. I think it's terribly unfair.
Yeah.
To the teams, and this year is another perfect example. Sacramento, who lived through a horrible year, they get the fourth pick in the draft. Doesn't seem right. It's not fair, and so I don't care for the lottery at all. And whether or not we got LeBron James or not, that is not even the issue at all.
What would you do to fix it?
What do I do to fix it? Whoever got the first pick, you'd pick in order up thereafter.
Oh. See, they did that, but then with the Hakeem Olajuwon, Michael Jordan draft, all the teams were losing intentionally.
Well, if you say you're losing intentionally, you're saying you're throwing games, and I would hate to think that any franchise would lower themselves to do that. Okay, some teams just can't win games because of their talent.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make any difference. If you have the same lottery, the way it is, and whoever gets the number one pick, the same chances. Once that team, whoever it might be, if it would be the last team that got it with minute odds, that would be fine too. But just the other teams that you finish in order of. So let's say the team with the eighth worst record got the draft. The team with the first record would get the second worst record would get get the second pick. But again, I don't like the lottery. I know a lot of people don't like it. Since I'm not involved, I guess I can talk about it a little bit more. But I don't like it.
Do you see yourself ever coming back to the league?
Absolutely not. No.
You're done.
No, as I say, I had a great time and was very fortunate to have been able to work for two teams with two great owners. And as I say, I think this is something for younger people who work so hard, and we see a lot of young executives involved out there. And it's to me, it's gratifying that we see that.
So you are finished. Can you at least make a 2009 finals prediction?
Well, I think the Lakers will win. But again, I'm prejudiced, okay?
In 5? In 6?
No, I wouldn't do that. I just think they'll win.
Finals MVP Kobe Bryant?
Don't know that. If they win, I'm sure he will be.
Pau Gasol? That's a chance. I actually think he could be key in this series.
The player on their team is going to carry him to Kobe Bryant. He's got a lot of help. He's got a lot of help, trust me. But I think the players that win will.
Let's talk about your PGA Tour thing.
Well, as I say, I'm fortunate enough to be able to been asked by the PGA Tour to get involved with the Northern Trust Open here in Los Angeles. And frankly, it's my way of giving back to the city of Los Angeles. We need to raise more money for charity here. I so admire people that play individual games. Golf has always had a special allure to me, and watching these players come and become great champions and doing it whether or not they don't have guaranteed contracts. But more importantly to me, I think the most gratifying thing for me is I've been fortunate in my life to be able to give to West Virginia University, which I can't tell you how good it feels, but I think the thing that feels better is when I get letters from kids and telling me how much they appreciate the opportunity to go to school and how I've helped them get through school and they've graduated. That's very meaningful for me. And we need to do that here in Los Angeles, raise a lot more money for charities out here that are significant and that risk kids. Even the school systems out here need a lot of help, as they do everywhere. So we're hopeful that we can significantly raise a profile of this. Something I'm very committed to, but this is about charity for me. I have a great title sponsor in Northern Trust and obviously the PGA Tour, the most philanthropic of all the professional leagues, and I guess you would call it a league. They've given over $1.4 billion to charity.
Wow.
And we need to do a better job here in Los Angeles than has been done in the last few years, that's for sure.
Do you have a website that the listeners can check out?
We do, and you know something, I don't have that right in front of me, but we do have that, and you know,
all right, well, Google Northern Trust.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
And but they've been, you know, as I say, they're very nice people, and more importantly, they've been a great company for years and years and years. So I'm hopeful this will be fun for everybody, and we are going to try to make this something that people must-see event every year. We're only talking about a week. We're not talking about watching 41 NBA games or 81 baseball games, or I think the same in hockey. This is one event a year, and we need to do more here to raise money for charities and raise the profile of this tournament.
And what are the dates for this year?
February 1st to the 7th.
Okay. And last question. You were Mr. Clutch forever and ever, and then somehow that you became the logo. Which was your favorite out of those two?
Well, you know, I don't ever even really talk about the logo, okay? To me, that's not important. If I'm the logo, so be it. If not, you know, if they want to change it to Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or Magic Johnson, I would be more than delighted, okay? Because I don't view myself that way at all. I was an athlete. I love to play. I love to compete. And I was fortunate enough to start my career in Los Angeles and end it here. And for me, that was a real honor. And I'm just, again, very thankful that I was able to do something I loved as a kid.
All right, we'll go with Mr. Clutch. Mr. Clutch, Jerry West, thank you so much for coming on the BS Report.
Thank you. Very nice to talk to you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.
That concludes, ends, finishes, wraps up another BS Report. With all the talk about baseball, the upcoming football season, and hockey playoffs, Bill Simmons neglected to mention something which frankly cannot go unstated. Okay, here goes. For a limited time, hurry into Subway and enjoy the new Tuscan Chicken Melt. Lovely seasoned chicken, melted bubbly cheese with olive vinaigrette, piled so high with the crisp veggies you love on your choice of freshly baked bread. All that deliciousness with 9 grams of fat. It's part of a fresh fit meal.